Okay, this is Jewel Diamond Taylor, and I am on the road as usual, interviewing interesting people. And I came across a young lady who's a member of my church. Hello, Yolanda. How are you today?
Hello, Joe. I'm beautiful. Thank you.
And you are beautiful. I just love your smile, love your energy.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that God ordained that we would get to know each other on a personal level and to find out that you are, I was praying with you, calling you and texting you, encouraging you, not really knowing what the battle that you were in. And the battle that you've been suffering with for years is sickle cell anemia. Is that correct?
That is
And
correct.
and there's a difference between having the sickle cell trait and having the sickle cell disease. And
Yes.
which one do you have?
I have sickle cell SC. You have now, there is the trait,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's sickle cell SC, and then there's sickle cell SS. I have sickle cell SC.
Okay. Now, what inspired me to do the interview with you today, Yolanda, is the fact that you are very passionate about becoming a voice now to educate our community about sickle cell. And it struck me because my son, who has passed on to glory, also had sickle cell. And if I had known this at the time, why it was so important to be an advocate for him in his health care, it might have made a difference. I'm not sure, but I don't want to ruminate on that because the past is past. And so I too am passionate about educating people and creating advocacy so that we can know how to talk to the doctors, seek the help that we need, and know the symptoms. Can you give us some insight as to why it's so important that we become educated about sickle cell, which is prominently in the African American community?
Yes, it is very important. The reason being is because as a 52-year-old woman, I was 21 years old when I became pregnant with my son, and that is when I found out that I had sickle cell anemia. However, sickle cell anemia is hereditary. Therefore, you are born with this disease.
Yes.
It is your DNA. So when I became pregnant with my son, I had an African American doctor who did all the blood work that OBGYN would do. And once the tests were back, he came back to me and informed me that he could not be my physician. And I was baffled because it's like I had chose him because I wanted him, and he came highly recommended, and also he worked out of the hospital I wanted to have my child at, which was Cedars-Sinai. And when he told me he could not be my doctor, the reason was he told me I had sickle cell. I had heard of sickle cell, but I did not know, like so many others, what sickle cell was, what it meant.
That must have been alarming to you.
At that time, I still did not even know the importance or just what it meant. He just told me you had sickle cell, and he said he couldn't be my doctor. I was more upset he couldn't be my doctor than I had sickle cell. But when I went home and began to research sickle cell, I looked it up, and then I started just kind of educating myself on sickle cell. I was thinking, oh my God, all these years I had this. And as a child, I used to have crisis and never knew what was wrong with me. My mom and dad, it was like a mystery unsolved 21 years after the fact. My mom and dad would take me to the hospital because I would get sick in the summertime when I do different activities, swim, that sort of thing. And the mystery was unsolved.
And Yolanda, that's one reason why I wanted to do this interview, because I'm imagining right now there could be some young people who are crying out in pain as you did, and they're being misdiagnosed, or they're being told they're emotionally unstable, or they're just trying to get attention. And that just makes my heart hurt to think that our children could be so misdiagnosed, and why there's such a need to bring a voice and a light to this sickle cell. What should parents be aware of, or what should an adult be aware of if they're beginning to have the symptoms? What are the symptoms, and what are the important signs and questions that they should be aware of?
Okay. Fortunately, today in the 21st century, now doctors are testing all children that are born. It's automatic.
Oh, it is. Okay.
A child is tested when they're born of sickle cell. Sickle cell, you have to be tested specifically for sickle cell. If you do not test specifically for sickle cell, then you do not find out that a person has it. But because now that children are automatically tested, is now they know. Now they know. And back in the day, we didn't know. So it's very important. Once a doctor tells you that, educate yourself, research what it means. Because even though the doctor told me I had it, he did not educate me. I had to educate myself on it. I had to research it. And it just kind of, like I said, it was mystery solved. All the pain that I was having, the fatigue. I was always tired compared to my other siblings. I have 7 siblings. And I was just always sickly. And I never knew why. My mom and dad would take me to the hospital. And they thought I was just a child with emotional problems.
Yeah. So even though the tests are mandatory and it's automatic, it's still the responsibility of the family to get the education, to understand the impact on their lives, to understand the symptoms, and to also to know how to advocate to get the right medication. I imagine there's a lot of painkillers you have to take.
Oh Lord, the pain is just undescribable. I try and compare it to childbirth because that's really the worst pain other than sickle cell. And sickle cell, childbirth has nothing, no kind of pain whatsoever on sickle cell. Sickle cell is just excruciating, and for an adult to go into a hospital just crying and screaming and just begging for mercy, what happens is even doctors, they're more aware of it now, but they don't really know the depths of it. So many doctors are uneducated about sickle cell. And when because it's majority, it predominantly affects African American, but it is spreading out into, let's just say, the other communities because of the interracial
marriages.
Exactly.
So how many pain pills do you take? How often do you go into a crisis?
As I get older, I go into a crisis. I'm going to say maybe 4 to 5 times a year. Now, when I was younger, I used to go into a crisis maybe every 3 to 5 years. But now I will have up to 5, 6. It just depends. I will have 5 multiple pain crises a year now.
And when you have those crises, how long are you incapacitated?
I would go in the hospital anywhere from maybe 2 to 3 days. My longest visit has been 14 days. And then even after you go home, there's still downtime of maybe 2 weeks of just regaining your strength, getting your blood level back up. You go through blood transfusion. You're on all these different pills. And the thing about sickle cell, another thing about it is, sickle cell is one thing, but what sickle cell does, it attacks the organs.
Oh my goodness.
So it creates other problems.
So there's a multiple issues you have to deal with.
Exactly.
What organs? Is it the liver or the lungs?
Any and every organ.
My goodness.
And not only your organs, but your joints. Because what happens is sickle cell, your blood cells are round. And because they're supposed to be round, a person with sickle cell, their blood cells are kind of like a
crooked
moon shape. Exactly. And what happens is they clump together.
Oh.
And when they clump together, it does not allow oxygen to flow through your blood like it should. And then what happens is when your oxygen does not flow through the blood, then it clots and it does not allow the blood flow to go to your organs and to your joints. So what happens is those parts of the body where the oxygen is not flowing properly begins to die.
Begin to suffer. Oh
They
my
begin to
goodness.
die.
They begin to die.
They begin to die. A lot of people with sickle cell also have kidney disease. I also have kidney disease. Yes, and then also I have avascular necrosis, which acronyms are AVN, and that's where your bones begin to die. I have avascular necrosis in both hips and in both shoulders.
My goodness.
So it just depends on the progress of your sickle cell and how bad you are, and just what, how many crises. Every crisis you have can be a hurdle for you, because you just never know after that crisis what type of damage it has done until after the
My
fact.
goodness. Now, I'm thinking of two things that must be so critical: your nutrition and family support. And every time I hear you talk about your sisters and your son, and of course our church, you do have a lot of emotional support. How important is that?
It's critical. It's very important. Without the support of my son, my siblings, God bless my mom and dad's soul, but they have passed on. I have the best support group, and then my new church family, New Life Christian Center. Just the support, it is very important. And the reason I say that is because when you're sitting in the hospital for days and weeks at a time, and the rest of the world is going on about its way, there's time where depression
I'm
could
sure.
set in. And if you're not careful, you can take on the why me attitude.
And I imagine the frustration of not having doctors that have the adequate education to treat the sickle cell must be very frustrating. So you've got to advocate for yourself in the midst of pain.
Exactly. And the sad part about it is, because of the uneducated community, including the medical community, a lot of times when sickle cell patients go into the hospital, they think we're druggies.
Okay, I got you.
Because we go in so much pain, and all we're looking for is relief.
Is relief.
And I'm not sure about a druggie or a person with an addiction, but I guess our symptoms are very similar.
Very similar.
We beg, we cry, we
Oh.
scream, and we're just pleading because we just need relief, because the pain is so excruciating. And then I guess with people with addictions, I guess their symptoms are
And not to
similar.
mention being a person of color, there's already this negative stereotype.
Exactly.
Now, the other thing, how important is your nutrition? I would imagine, have you gotten any guidance as to foods that bring oxygen
Yes.
to the blood, foods that will help feed your organs,
Right.
foods that will give you energy? What is your diet like?
For one, a very, very important part of my diet is water.
Water, okay?
Water, and more water. Okay, because we need to stay hydrated. With sickle cell, you do not want to become dehydrated, because that automatically, all by itself, can put you into
My
a crisis.
goodness.
So just eating healthy, your vegetables, your fruits, those type of foods have all your nutrients and all the healthy things that you need. And it's very important, even as far as just basic things like proper rest.
Yes.
To not overexert when your body is tired, when it tells you, I'm tired, I just want to go to sleep. Proper rest and just proper eating, just really basic,
Yes.
is important. There's no real eat 3 bananas a day or 3 apples a day. It's nothing like that.
And there's
But
so
to
many
just
different
eat healthy.
degrees of this disease that everybody has a different experience with it, I imagine.
Everyone has their own experience, but there are a lot of similarities as far as the avascular necrosis. Your bones is pretty much, if you have sickle cell, usually within your lifetime. And nowadays people with sickle cell are living much longer. Back in the day, people with sickle cell did not live to be 30.
Oh, my
By the
goodness.
grace of God, I am 52 years old.
A beautiful
And
52 years old.
Thank you
And I'm
very
so
much.
glad that you took this time